Okay, I think I'm on. Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Making Your Content Stand Out. You've heard a lot already this morning. Website and marketing in general from Ann Hanley, and creating content then to now put on your website is sort of the next step in your journey, your customer journey. So to start with, you want to look at your content goals. What is it you want to actually accomplish? Who are you trying to reach? Is it locals? Is it visitors? Is it Manitobans? Is it Canadians? How big is your reach? What kinds of people are you trying to reach? Seniors, families, millennials, single people, couples. It's really important to have in mind that ideal customer when you're starting to create pieces of content. And you should be tailoring them, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. You need to figure out how you're going to reach them. Do you have the right social media accounts, a newsletter, a blog, a plan in place to collect video and photo content? What do you want people to do when they look at your content? Do you want them to learn about the destination, contact you for more information, do an overnight stay, attend an event, visit an attraction? So all kinds of things. You need to have a really clear sense of what that content is supposed to do. And finally, you need to think about your budget. You can only get so far on social media without spending any money. Obviously, Facebook, Instagram, they want you to spend money, and they're going to prioritize brands that spend money, and therefore your message is going to keep getting pushed back if you are relying too much on solely organic content. I mean, that is one avenue, but at some point you need to spend a little bit of money. It doesn't have to be a ton, but it is important to think about how much you can start filtering into your content distribution, because there's no point in creating it if nobody sees it. So some of the basics of content marketing to keep in mind is don't try to be everything to everyone. Don't write big, long lists of things that you think are going to appeal to a million different groups. You're always better off focusing it on something really specific or a really specific target. And then think about the type of content you're creating. We like to break it up into sort of these three spokes, if you will, just to sort of help inform what type of content we're creating. So hero being that sort of high level content, which is what you'd mostly see in, like, if I were to use Travel Manitoba as an example, those big 30-second ads that you see on television, big broadcast kind of thing, those are selling more of an idea than anything specific, right? More of a feeling, a spirit, encouraging people to hear about Manitoba, that kind of thing. Where most of our content falls is into the hub and help portions. So hub is more, a little bit smaller. So 12 romantic ideas for outdoor proposals in Manitoba is one that we recently created, where there's 12 different places you can visit with a little bit more information. 9 spots to break out the skates. Again, a little bit more concrete information on where you can actually go skating. And then finally, help is that more really granular content that is very specific and user-friendly. So we do the top 10 things to do every week post, and that is very much help content. Here are 10 things to do that you can do. And this craft sales post, I can't tell you how much this thing explodes every single year that we do it. Obviously 2020, we didn't get to do it, but it's literally just a list of craft sales, and yet it's one of our highest performing posts every year, and it's nothing fancy. Establish a frequency of posting. You have to do it regularly. I know it can be a challenge when it's just you and you don't have a dedicated team, but you do need to do it regularly or you just don't stay in the minds of your audience. So even if it's once a day, even if it's a few times a week, try and establish a regular content calendar or a regular schedule so that you're not falling off people's radar. Whenever you're creating content, never forget to yourself. How are you different than another destination in the province? What is different about your town or your attraction or your hotel, etc.? And we struggle with that too, even as a province, right? How do we differentiate ourselves from our neighboring provinces and what other, especially the big provinces, have that we might not have? What is your unique selling point? And then finally, make your ask clear. What is it you want them to do? Alex talked quite a bit about that one click. If you're selling a package through a blog post, then make sure when they click on that link, they're taken directly to that package. If you make them hunt for it, that's when you lose them. Strong visuals. I think it's been mentioned several times today already that strong visuals are one of the most important things you can do to make your content stand out. You do not ever post something without a visual to go with it. It's just going to get lost. There's no point to it. And you need to find a way to generate strong photo and video content. The session after this with Kit, who will talk a little bit about creating video without a video budget, is I think going to be really key for this, and something to keep in mind. Don't post things like your flyer, your poster, your ad on your Instagram or your Facebook. People don't want it, like those don't ever get engagement. People want beautiful, luscious photos, and play around with what works. Like for us, we find landscape photos tend to do the best, especially when looking at Instagram. This picture right here is a great example. Bold colors, big expansive skyline, and make sure you're including diversity in your assets. Think about the different types of people that inhabit this province. Make sure they don't all look the same, because that's not really an acceptable way to generate your content anymore. And then just, yeah, play around with what works best for your channels. If you know a certain kind of photo works best on your Instagram, then do more of that. That's one of the keys. So when you're writing content, you want to look for a hook. Find a catchy headline. People love lists. We do tons of lists. People just seem to really resonate with them. Focus on, do something weird and creative. You can see we did this post on the smelliest spots you need to visit in Manitoba, which, full disclosure, I stole from an Expedia article that I saw. I thought it was a creative idea. And I mean, we're just talking about the same 10 of the same things we talk about all the time. Thermea, for example. But we just twisted it by talking about how good it smells, right? It's just another way to infuse a new idea to the same thing over and over again. Think about what's trending, what's even locally or even in pop culture. We did this silly post on 10 ways Animal Crossing is just like Explore MB. This was early in the pandemic and Animal Crossing had just come out and everyone was playing it because we were all stuck at home. And it was just a fun idea to bring something that was happening local in pop culture to bring it home to us in Manitoba. And then campgrounds is a good example of what was trending locally this summer. We knew camping was the hottest thing. Everyone was booking out. So we thought, you know, 15 campgrounds that still have availability, just focusing on what people are looking for. And that goes back to what Anne talked about this morning, not talking about what we want to talk about, but how are we helping our audience? And I talked a bit about distribution. So you can create all the content in the world that you want. If nobody sees it, who cares? That's where social media is often used the most. We use Facebook and Instagram the most widely, Facebook having the widest reach and the most diverse demographic. It skews on a slightly older, so that makes sense for us. Instagram's audience is a little bit younger, and we find quite engaged and really eager to participate in photographers through using the Explore MB hashtag. Pinterest is one that we've put a lot more effort into the last few years. It's not really social media, it's more of a search engine. So all the stuff that Doug just talked about would probably apply more, but we like it because it has a strong US audience. Well, it did before 2020 happened, but I'm sure that will come back. And obviously it's frequented by women who tend to be the decision makers in their households. And travel content is huge on Pinterest, so it makes sense there. We launched TikTok about a year ago, I would say, and we're up to almost 30,000 followers by focusing on it. It doesn't have a ton of ROI right now because that's just not the way it's designed, but we're generating future interest amongst a much younger audience than we are hitting with any of our other social media platforms. And Twitter, don't bother is my take on it. Personally, for travel, I don't think it's strong. I wouldn't put a lot of effort into it. It's for news, it's for industry, that kind of thing. At least that's my personal opinion. But I wouldn't also jump into all of these. I would pick one or two that you can handle, that you can focus on, that you have the time and energy to do really well, and pick those. Because you're going to be spreading yourself thin if you try to get onto too many at once. We have a larger team, so we can do that. But personally, if it were me, I would focus on Facebook and Instagram the most. And to that end, I often am in these presentations and someone will put up their hand and say, well, what's new? What's the next thing? Like, if you aren't established on the ones that are already exist, don't worry about it. You need to establish a base first, and then you can worry about what's new, what's next. And that answer is changing by the minute, of course. Newsletters. If you ever talk to me about content, you will know that that is, I don't shut up about newsletters. This is actually Anne Handley herself who finally convinced me of it. I had the fortune of seeing her speak live a few times at Content Marketing World over the last few years. And she gave a really great keynote presentation about newsletters, where she made the point that a newsletter is the only place your audience is actually asked for your content. Every other form of content consumption is passive. A newsletter isn't. They've said to you, hey, here's my email address, message. So that is the most powerful person that you can reach, in that all those hundreds and thousands and millions of people that you could reach, that person who gave you their email is the most important. I could do a whole session on just newsletters, but they don't have to be a lot of work. I know it sounds daunting. Try for one a month, one every 2 months. You don't have to create original content. Use whatever you've already created and drop it in there. That's what we do. We have a weekly one, but it's just a roundup of the blog posts we wrote that week. We're not creating a ton of new content for it to help keep it manageable. Include a newsletter sign up on everything you do, everywhere on your website. Took me a few years to convince Doug to let me have an e-newsletter sign up pop up on the homepage of our website, but you can see the cute little beluga whale. We finally have it. And then start getting into newsletters. You can get creative and more fancy with welcome emails and lead magnets. And a lead magnet is basically a bit of an exclusive content you offer to someone for signing up for your newsletter. So you can see the example here. We had a list of 30 amazing winter hikes and cross-country ski trails, and you can only access that list if you sign up for your newsletter. And you'll see this with newsletters in your inbox, probably from like people that actually sell things, or 50% off if you sign up for a newsletter, that kind of thing. This is our version of that, since we aren't selling shoes. And birthday email. We have such a high open rate on our birthday emails. We have this silly thing where we create, this year we did your birthday food related to a local Manitoba food. January was Jeannie's cake. Last year we did what's your Manitoba animal every month, and these are just really well received. So once there's all kinds of layers of newsletters. Start with a regular one to your full list, and you can build up from there. One day we'll do an entire session on just newsletters. Influencers and travel media. The point of hiring an influencer basically is to reach another audience that doesn't belong to you. Influencers have different audiences, might have wider audiences, and they have different skills and expertise, especially when it comes to photography and video content, especially. Sometimes this can be really inexpensive, just the cost of the experience itself. Often influencers are open to trading assets, photography and video, in exchange, so this is a great way to help build those libraries for yourself. Travel media is a little bit different in that it's more earned media, and that's something that we as Travel Manitoba do for you. That's not something you need to worry about so much, but my advice is when we come knocking with travel media saying we would like you to host somebody, then it's up to you to step up your game and really show them what you can do. I'm a big fan of repurposing and reusing content. I think people are always surprised that we reshare content all the time. There's 43 fun facts about Manitoba that will blow your mind. We've been sharing that post since 2015, and it still ends up being the top read post, one of the top read posts every year. And it's, you know, every once in a while we'll add another fact if we find one, but it's been basically the same for years, and nobody complains about it because everyone loves it. And when I say reuse, like, think about different ways to reframe things. When I talking about Thermea in terms of how it smells, well, we talk about Thermea all the time, but this was just another different way to talk about it. Same with hiking trails, you know, you've probably never heard of. Well, it could be the same 20 hiking trails we wrote about last summer, but we used a different title, but now it sounds completely different, right? Like, it doesn't have to be complicated to make the same thing sound new and exciting and did before. which can be, a challenge if you're just one attraction and you're thinking, I just don't have this much content to create. Well, you don't have to keep creating new stuff. Just think about framing it in different ways. Where to watch a spectacular sunset in Manitoba. Again, that's a whole list of places we talk about all the time. We just reframed it in a slightly different way. And the cats example is another good one. 7 spots in Manitoba to meet adorable cats. Well, the cat I think in the picture there is from, oh gosh, the name is escaping me. They make pizza. We talk about them all the time, but this time we talked about the cat and then framed it in the you should go visit because of this, right? So it doesn't always be brand new. Here's some more examples of ways we repurposed and reused content. We did some shopping stuff around Christmas time last year and then put it all into the Manitoba Wish Book and then spun that out into an entire gift card campaign that saw all kinds, thousands of entries, and we hope lots of love for all the local people trying to sell stuff this winter. Northern Lights, again, we write about Northern Lights constantly. This time we threw it into an infographic just to change how we were talking about that information. In that, come to Manitoba and see the Northern Lights, here's some cool facts, and that still works. And then finally, one thing that we do tons of are these slideshows, which Kit in the next presentation will talk way more about. And I think this is such an effective way to repurpose content in a really cheap, easy way without having to have a whole video team at your disposal. And then finally, measurement. You need to see working. And keep this simple. Establish a few things that you want to make sure that you are keeping an eye on. The big ones would be impressions, reach, engagements, which you can then calculate engagement % from, link click-throughs, email subscribers, video reviews, and video completion rate. Of course, that all depends on the type of content that it is, but those are some of the big ones you should focus on. And you can either do this manually through each platform, which can be time consuming as long as but shouldn't be if you're not overextending how many that you're using, or you can invest in a stats platform. I've been using Sprout Social for the last few years. It's fairly inexpensive and it brings everything together into one screen, into one platform, so that you're not hunting around for different numbers and that kind of thing, and you can print reports and that kind of stuff, because you just want to see what's actually working for you and keep doing more of that, or sort of changing it around to keep making it effective. And I burned through that because we're a little bit behind. So if there's any questions, I don't know if there's time for them. I think we're still a little bit behind. If you want to type them into the Q&A, we'll make sure that we get them answered. And this is my email. I'm happy to answer questions anytime anybody has them. And that's it.